I have a new book out called Godmindfamily: The Human Mind, Behaviour, Symptoms, the Family, Society, Politics, and God's Kingdom Explained. It's available free on my website, robertensor.com, spelled Ensor, and on Amazon in ebook and paperback formats. And there will be links in the description below. So the best prior framework for thinking about the family is Murray Bowen's family systems theory, written about and developed by his protégé Michael Kerr. After the Second World War, Bowen pioneered family therapy and family systems theory. What follows is a summary of Bowen's family systems theory. So one of Bowen's main points was emotional fusion. One of his main concepts was emotional fusion, which included overfunctioning and underfunctioning. So from observing families in a clinical context, Bowen noticed that there was a tendency to emotional fusion in families. That is, it was a tendency for family members to merge with each other emotionally, to feel each other's feelings and become highly anxious, moody, melodramatic, and reactive to one another. This can occur in romantic relationships, parent-child relationships, sibling relationships, and even intense friendships. Bowen believed that the human desire for togetherness, fusion, was counterbalanced by a competing desire for individuality, which he called differentiation. According to Bowen, the consequences of emotional fusion are either cut off or dysfunctional behavior, symptoms, or bringing a third person into the conflict, which he called the formation of a triangle. So that brings us on to Bowen's second main point, which was triangles. A triangle is a relationship system involving three people. Bowen regarded the triangle as the basic emotional building block of society. He believed that a triangle was more stable than a two-person system because, unlike a dyad, it can tolerate more tension without involving an extra person. Triangles usually mean that one person is the third wheel or odd one out in the outside position with two closer insiders, but tensions between the two insiders can result in shifting allegiances, whereby the outsider becomes the insider and one of the previous insiders becomes the new outsider. Bowen believed the outside position was associated with a build-up of anxiety because of the social exclusion, but acknowledged that when the insiders argue, the outside position can actually be something of a haven of tranquility. An example of a dysfunctional triangle is two insider parents focusing excessively on an outsider child, which can cause rebellion or sickness in the child. Bowen's next point, and his main point, was differentiation of self. It was Bowen's main concept and solution to family-related anxiety. Differentiation was basically Bowen's measure of how emotionally mature people are, the extent to which they are influenced by others and by their own emotions. There are two components of differentiation: differentiation of self from others and differentiation of the intellectual system from the emotional system. A poorly differentiated person is highly emotionally reactive to others and becomes easily stressed out. This can manifest in running away from conflict, including ghosting, or in melodramatic and overly emotional behavior. Bowen believed that people with low self-differentiation were more liable to illnesses. A well-differentiated person is able to remain calm and objective and maintain their own values and beliefs in the face of outside pressure while staying connected to others. Bowen believed that people had a basic differentiation level derived from their genes, family history, childhood, and adolescence that was relatively fixed and difficult to improve upon. He did, however, allow that one's functional level of differentiation, how one behaves in relationships, was more context dependent and capable of development, but within limits. Family systems theory and family therapy aim to improve patients' self-differentiation to ameliorate family dysfunction. The chief mechanism for doing this is to increase the awareness in the individual, or better yet, the entire family, of the functioning of the family as an emotional unit, bringing about a higher level of emotional objectivity in the family system, or at least part of it, and for behavior to change constructively as a result of these insights. Bowen's next concept was nuclear family emotional process, which describes four basic patterns that determine where problems emerge in a family. Marital conflict, spouses focusing on each other's shortcomings, especially as responsibilities mount. Dysfunction in a spouse, the submissive spouse yields too much self-control to the dominant, which Bowen believed may result in dysfunction or symptoms. Impairment of one or more children, when both parents focus their anxiety excessively on a child, this can undercut the child's differentiation. And emotional distance, people distance from each other to reduce the intensity of the relationship without actually solving anything. Bowen's next concept was family projection process. This is the process whereby parents unconsciously transmit their emotional problems and anxieties onto their children, often by focusing on them excessively, mollycoddling them, or worrying that the child is a problem, which causes the child to act in ways that confirm that belief. This can actually create real problems, illness, and low differentiation in the child via the power of self-fulfilling prophecies. The next concept is multi-generational transmission process, how levels of differentiation and problems are passed down through the generations of a family, often leading to a deterioration in levels of differentiation over time. This occurs via the family projection process, and Bowen believed it could affect factors like physical health and marital stability in descendants. Emotional cutoff. Now, this is Bowen's next concept, and it is a means of handling the tension and unresolved emotional issues in relationships with parents, siblings, or partners by cutting oneself off from them. This can be achieved by moving away, visiting rarely, or remaining in occasional or frequent contact with the family, but avoiding sensitive topics. Emotional cutoff does not resolve a relationship problem, and people who cut themselves off risk carrying the issue over from their family of origin to their new family. For example, recreating issues they had with their parent, with a spouse or child. Bowen's next concept was sibling position. So the basic idea is that birth order influences people's personalities in more or less predictable ways. For example, Bowen believed that an older sibling tended toward leadership positions while younger siblings tended to be followers or rebels. Bowen also believed the sibling positions of a couple determined their compatibility. Bowen's next concept is societal emotional process, and this posits that the anxiety and emotional issues that beset families also affect communities and nations, which effectively function as large-scale families. Bowen and Kerr observed that governments can also mollycoddle their citizens via excessive welfare and benefits, and that during periods of national stress, war, recession, etc., the systemic anxiety of the country increases, sometimes leading to irrational collective behavior. Bowen believed that ever since World War II, American society entered a regressive pattern and the differentiation level began to decline, the symptoms of which included an increase in crime, collective anxiety, divorce, drug abuse, insolvencies, and increased harmful focus on children and their problems. Bowen's next concept was chronic anxiety. There is a difference between acute and chronic anxiety. Acute anxiety is a reaction to immediate threats, which are sometimes real. Chronic anxiety, according to Bowen, is generated within the relationship system based on largely perceived dangers. Bowen and Kerr conceptualized chronic anxiety as the main problem afflicting human beings and systems, including families, organizations, and societies, positing that it caused everything from domestic arguments and dysfunctional behaviors, including addictions, infidelity, delinquency, and other issues, to physical symptoms. Bowen believed that people with low differentiation had higher chronic anxiety. He thought anxiety could be lowered by increased differentiation resulting from successful family therapy, but that this could only be achieved to a point. The next concept is unidisease. Michael Kerr extended Bowen theory with his concept of unidisease. The basic concept of unidisease, as outlined by Kerr, is that chronic anxiety generated within the family system causes all diseases from cancer to psoriasis via physiological mechanisms such as inflammation. The next concept is systems thinking versus individual causes. It's important to note that Bowen and Kerr did not seek to assign blame to any one individual, but rather they perceived that dysfunction arose as a consequence of the family as a system. They believed that some people were simply dealt bad cards as a result of their family history, and that in certain cases, only limited progress could be made as a result of the multi-generational transmission process. Bowen thought that family members were so intensely connected that a change in one person often caused a change in another family member. The next concept is supernatural phenomena. This last part of Bowen's theory was the least developed, receiving just a few mentions by Bowen and one short chapter at the end of Bowen Theory's Secrets written by Michael Kerr. Bowen observed the miraculous healings at Lourdes and other instances of amazing healing from physical and psychological maladies, and hypothesized that the recipients' faith that they would recover was an important factor in their recoveries. Again, my new book, Godmindfamily, is available free on my website, robertensor.com, spelled ENSOR, and on Amazon in ebook and paperback formats, and you can find the links in the description below.